number 7. This is our governance committee meeting. Let the record show that the chair is absent and I am filling in for the chair today. We would like to start with a round of just letting everyone know who's in the room. So I'm Margot Bellamy, filling in for Chair Holloman today.
And I'm Amanda Foster, Executive Assistant to the Board.
Kelly Lessons, Board Member.
Marty Knight, Chief of Human Resources.
Ed Higgins, School Board.
Dave Donnelly, Board Member.
Jared Bryant, Superintendent.
Andy Ratliff, Chief Financial Officer.
Jim Anderson, Chief Operating Officer.
MJ Communications.
Holly Zembro, Director of Activities and Student Services in Secondary.
Okay.
Again, Muppet. Jenny Knudsen, Senior Director of Mental
Sure, no
Health and
problem.
Student Support.
Thank you.
Corey Ace, teacher.
Tony Riley, Senior Director of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Community Engagement.
Oh, welcome in the flesh.
Andrew Ball, Employee Relations Specialist.
All right. And did I miss anyone? All right, so that establishes the record of attendance. We are now moving on to our discussion items. We have several today. We will start with item 1, which is our routine policy reviews. We're looking today at policy 1000, 1020, 1100, and 1112. Those who are in the room, you can have access to those at the from the handouts. Board Policy 1000 covers concepts and roles. There are no revisions, but is there any discussion? Yes, Member Lessons.
I wanted to flag in 1000 that I was really uncertain whether it's true that the state and local community determine the number of educational programs available. Because that sounds a lot like board work, right?
Yes.
We reviewed and we reflected of the community's vision, but actually the board as a body is responsible for consolidating schools or not. And so my suggestion would be to delete number of educational programs available and because I think the state and community do determine the quality of the educational process, but I would flag that number is not the prerogative of the state or community.
Okay, so read your edit again.
So the school board recognizes that the state and local community determine the quality of the educational process in general. So it's just deleting
The number.
of educational programs available in that first and second line.
Okay. Thank you
Mr.
for,
Donnelly,
yes, Member.
do we have anybody online that's a quorum that we could go ahead and make that change or?
No,
Carl's trying
Carl's
to
trying
get
to get
on,
on.
is having issues.
we may not be able to make it today for that very reason, but we can at least establish the record. Other comments? Hopefully Carl will be able to get on. Any comments from the administration at this time? The change would be basically in the first sentence. The school board recognizes that the state and local community determine the quality and determine the quality of the educational process in general. Is that correct?
Yes.
So we will be removing the words number of the recommendation is to remove the words number of educational programs available
And
Yep. Okay. We do not have a quorum to act on that, so we will establish it as part of the committee's work, and we'll continue on now to, if there's no other discussion on BP 1000. Let's move now to Board Policy 1020. And we apologize for the technical glitches, but we are perhaps, Kelly, can you log on to see if maybe Carl can listen in through you? Oh, we can't bring him on though.
No,
do you want me to just
I'm
call
working
him?
with him right
Oh.
now. He thinks he's in now. but-
Okay.
Cool. But I can't hold on because he's on his phone.
You should just be able to say aloud at the top.
Okay, there we go. Okay, perfect.
Then
Thank you.
Carl, if you can hear us, you should be able to *6
and unmute.
Can you hear us, Carl? Okay, well, we are recording. If you can't hear us, we are recording, but as- all right, so we're moving on to board
can hear you,
policy
cool.
1020, youth services. Is there any discussion, edits, revisions on this one? Not seeing any, that will stand as it is, stay as it is. Did you get that, Amanda? No changes. And now we're moving on to policy 1100, communication with the public. Any edits? Clarifications? Is there any edits, clarifications, or revisions on 1100? Okay, seeing and hearing none.
It's showing Carl.
Oh,
Yeah, yes, he is on now, sorry.
Member, let the board reflect that Member Jacobs has joined us. Member Jacobs, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me okay?
Can you say again? I think the volume was down.
Okay. I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you clear. Thank you. We're now moving on to, there were no edits or revisions to 1100. The last routine review is board policy 1112, media relations. Is there any, yes, member?
I'm reading this and I see media representatives are welcome at all school board meetings, shall receive meeting announcements and agenda upon request. There's all kind of media representatives everywhere in Anchorage. You got, you got blogs, I don't even know who's included. Every radio station, every TV station, every news media, print media. This is so wide open that when you deal with a policy too, when it says you shall do something, you have no choice. You have to do it. I don't know how this is met. And for clarifications, if you want to say that media representatives may be on mailing list or doing something else if they want, but to me, I don't see how the administration can possibly meet this expectation.
Okay, so I think we currently are meeting it, but I will refer to, MJ had to
Yeah,
step
I
out.
asked him to come
He's on.
back.
Okay,
He is online. Let me see it.
I'm here. I'm troubleshooting up here on this live stream.
okay. Did you hear the question, MJ?
I heard the last part about our media. Was it about our media mailing
Yeah.
list?
Policy 1112, that third sentence that reads, media representatives are welcome at all school board meetings and shall receive meeting announcements and agendas upon request. The
Yep, we
question is,
managed.
how are we meeting that?
We
policy?
engage with the media almost on a daily basis, and we reach out to them and coordinate when they want to cover school board meetings. And we didn't do it this week, but what we put out is what's to expect. And we engage with them either the day before or that morning to let them know about the meetings and to let us know if they're going to be covering it, so we can try and outreach and facilitate as best we can. And we make sure that they know that they've got a point of contact at the meeting.
So if they wanted to be included, they would notify who to say include me.
Communications.
Okay.
Yeah, usually we're proactive about it and letting them know. Sometimes they hit us up first. Sometimes they let us know about a specific item agenda that they're interested in. So it's really a two-way communication street.
And actually I, for one, enjoy having to go, for media people to go through communications before coming directly to me.
I just didn't know what the
Yeah.
process was and how that would be included. So.
Yeah,
And they have access to the agendas because it's public.
yeah, the agendas are public. All right, any other questions? Does that answer your question, Member Higgins? Member Higgins, does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other discussion? Excuse me, any other discussion on 11-12? Okay, seeing, hearing none. That completes
Madam
item,
President,
yes,
and with Carl's online, we could go back to 1,000 and make those
Oh.
recommended changes.
good catch. Member Jacobs, if you could look at board policy 1000. There is a recommended revision that we need at least two committee member approvals to go forward. If you look at the board policy 1000, you will see that first sentence. The revision is to delete the words number of educational programs and available and the, so that it will read, the school board recognizes that the state and local community determine the quality of the educational process in general.
Madam President, I'd so move.
Member Jacobs, did you hear?
I hear, yeah, thank you, Madam President, for outlining that. I guess I'm I'm looking at the board policy. I'm wondering what the rationale is behind the change.
So member, I will ask member Lessons to restate her
Yeah.
rationale.
Sure, Member Jacobs, my thought was that I'm uncertain whether the state and community themselves determine the number of educational programs available, because it is through the board's actions and budgeting cycle that, to my understanding, determines the number of programs that we have available. I don't know, and I want the administration to correct me if I'm wrong here, that the state has a jurisdiction over ASD's programs. I know that they authorize a charter school if we authorize it.
I believe they could also authorize a charter school if we don't authorize it. Like if we were, if the board were to reject an application, they could appeal that directly to the state.
But but the state, neither the state nor the community could say, out of your 124 programs, we want to see 67 now. I mean, they don't have that prerogative, right? That would be the board deciding to.
Well, it would be based on.
I mean, I guess I'm just trying to, we talked about governance the other day, and that just seems to fall under board governance.
Like they wouldn't direct school closures to get to a
Right,
certain
right.
number.
Right.
Or new schools,
Right,
although they have to approve a new school.
right. So they, but I do think that the state determines the quality of the educational process through things like funding available for adjusting pupil-to-teacher ratios.
Madam President, could I follow up on my question?
Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Member Lessons, and thank you. I think that was probably Mr. Ratliff and Mr. Anderson. Sounds like who chimed in on the response. So appreciate that context. I'm not in opposition to the language. I guess my only question, I guess, would be if we're happy with moving this out of committee and moving it to a board agenda, or if we think we need more time to refine it. If administration is comfortable and if the other members here present are comfortable, I'm happy lending my support to get it on an agenda.
Thank you, Member Jacobs. Is there any comments from the administration at this time? We
No
have
concerns on my end.
Member Donnelly, you had a motion to move forward.
Yes, ma'am.
Member Donnelly has a motion to move forward. The administration has no objection to that. So that would be you and Member Donnelly to move this one forward with the changes. All right,
Yep, that sounds good, Madam President. Thank you.
okay. Let the record show that the revision to board policy 1000 will move forward as discussed with the changes discussed. All right. Let's now go to Operations Audit Committee. If you can pull that up from, this is a carryover from our last meeting. Submitted by Member Higgins. Yes.
Thank you. The Operations Audit Committee has been an ongoing thing within the school board for a long time. It stopped in the last number of years but before that, some of those are on the school board site. The purpose of that is falls into the National School Board Association expectations of school boards that they provide the voice of the public, they provide directions, and they provide accountability. It's not an adversarial relationship with the administration. It is one where the board plays a role in the types of audits they want to see, and they do it routinely with different departments. And they're playing a role in regard to the scope of it, to make sure that that scope addresses the issues the board may have. But that's the extent of it. Then the board, the administration works with the audit group, and they do the review and come back with recommendations. And the recommendations, of course, go to the board, but they go to the administration first. So it's not something that has been adversarial or refused. We have included in the past, there's been audits that the administration may not have really pushed for, like everyday math, which was hated pretty much by a lot of people back there when they did it. It was heavy math intensive. And the Council on Great City Schools came in, did a review, said these were the problems with it. It didn't get buy-in before it came in, no training. And the results were, at best, San Antonio was acceptable results. That's the best in the country. The decision was to move on. The administration was kind of entrenched in that when the board did somebody external. The Council of Great City Schools does very inexpensive audits. I mean, we did purchasing audit was 20 to 40,000. All we doing is paying per diem and we're, and travel, and that's it. So we're getting it from other great schools, large school districts with experts in the field. We've got issues here that should be reviewed, but the one that gets me is the ones we don't review. By doing reviews of different departments, we may identify or become aware of issues that we wouldn't even know about. We've got questions right now about health insurance, for example, and some other issues there. But if we didn't know that and we just did that as an audit, we'd get those discovered, and that would be an opportunity. There are issues out there in regards to procurement. We have seen that firsthand, where we have had exceptions to the policies that weren't appropriate, would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars of taxpayers' money in regards to acquisitions, and it got reversed when we had challenges, and we became the voice. There are serious issues that are threatening the safety of kids today. I'm sorry, but if staff can't raise concerns above the principal, and when they're told if you have a problem with the principal, go to another school, and I saw that firsthand, talking with the administration here 4 years ago, within that period, that's not safe for the kids. If they want to raise a safety concern, gas leak, some other safety issue, and the effort is to shut them down, that's bad news. And I like the approach of working with the administration on selecting the types of audits. And we're playing a role in ensuring that the scope addresses what any concerns that the board is doing. It's very cost effective. We save the taxpayers' money, we improve outcomes, and it just makes sense. But once again, it's not us taking control of an audit, but we're getting a third-party review. If we have concerns, our concerns are to go public with it, or the administration doesn't, we got to have a third way, an objective way of looking at this. This has been going. When it comes to the board, I'll get you plenty of past school board members. But we have done this with a lot of savings and a lot of benefits. The frustration of not doing this is very big because we do have some serious issues right now, in my opinion. And I can go through those right now. I don't want to cover all of them because I don't want to raise it all, but there were ethics kind of things, and this is a prior before the superintendent. I want to be fair about this. But there's still ongoing being handed over to them in regards to what these issues are. So I strongly am advocating for this as opposed to just getting public involved in dealing with these issues, because you can't be solid if you think there's safety concerns or other issues. Let's go with an objective third party that's friendly, cost effective, that works with the administration, and all our role is to improve the schedule of the audits and to talk about the scope. That's the two things we want to do. I think this is absolutely critical to the board.
Okay, thank you, Member Higgins. Comments?
Madam President,
I see Member Lessons, and then we'll come to you, Member Jacobs.
thank you.
Without saying how I feel about it, I do actually think there are some edits that I would propose, because I think the second paragraph is unclear. It says the school board will approve departments and operations to be conducted each year. And I think it would make more sense to me if it clarified whether the entire board or this audit committee that you want established would approve the departments and operations to be audited each year. So my suggestion is that in the first sentence of the second paragraph, clarify that the school board audit committee will approve departments and operations to be audited each year. That is a little bit more direct in, I think, getting to what I hear that you're saying. And then the word superintendent needs to be spelled out correctly. The one question.
Okay, I drafted it.
Yeah, that's okay. I knew what you meant. And then the one question, you did speak to its cost effectiveness, but there's no such thing really as a free lunch. So what is the cost?
The cost is transportation and per diem for auditing. But for the procurement we did, it was less than 40,000. And when we had to do the entire policies, it cost us less than 80,000 or about that. And they did all the work that would have taken a lot of time and a lot of creativity on the part of that. And they did everything from top to bottom. And at that time, the assessment was it saved about $500,000 a year. So the cost of these audits are very inexpensive, when you come in. So probably 40,000 or less to do the audits in most cases with that type of cost with the Council of Great City Schools to do an entire department audit.
Yeah, and it would depend on the audit, of course. It would
Yeah.
depend on a lot of factors, but it would
It's cheap.
likely be cheaper because of our membership with the Council of Greater City Schools. Did you have a follow-up, member Lessons?
Yes, I was getting to that cost item and I don't.
And we may not have it,
I thought I saw something at some point in an email a
I
long
think
time ago.
I think we,
So I don't have a
under-
follow-up yet.
it's in the Council of Greater City Schools membership benefits.
Yeah.
So, yes,
If I
Marty.
can, Madam President, so we just recently contracted with the Council of Great City Schools to do a benefits audit. And the current cost for them to bring up a team of, I think, 4 or 5 individuals for 4 days was $45,000.
And I'll address that issue because there were issues in regards to the benefit audit that may not be addressed that I know I have and others have because we're not involved in providing input into the scope of that audit. That is going to end up, there's going to be questions that are raised that I'm going to raise after the fact that I don't want to raise after the fact, but I will. And I'll do that.
I think the audit includes interviews with several internal stakeholders. And I don't know I don't know the structure as it was before, included board members as well before, and when I say before, during my tenure.
In the past, when there's been audits by the administration, the board hasn't been engaged, okay? When we go through it, I used to be.
But we are engaged in the financial audits. I know you're talking operations and management
I'm
now.
talking about
but we-
operations and
I
management.
know, but we are, audits are audits, right? It just looks at different pieces of structures within the organization.
But-
So we do have, when we do financial audits, they come before us to prioritize, to select. And then we choose the ones that we're going to go forward with.
And we have a
And then when it
finance
comes
committee.
back,
Yes.
someone comes, sits before us, gives us the results of the audit and allows us to ask questions.
I'm just saying there's been operations audits in the past that have been conducted by administration. We don't have a input into the scope of
Okay.
what's been asked. I haven't been involved in this one. They know I'm pretty heavily engaged in this sort of thing from my professional field, and I've got concerns. But we don't have a chance, we haven't had a chance. It's already been set what the scope is or what you've done. You've got an agreement. And that's where the audit committee plays a role. So doing this audit, I applaud, but not having an input, that's part of the issue. And we may include audits that may not be as high a priority. I think the superintendent has goals with audits that I applied within it. And I think the fact that they become aware of the benefits of this particular group is important. But I don't see any plans or anything else and to have an opportunity to provide input. And the audit committee would achieve that and ensure that we know what audits are being done and what's in input.
Okay, thank you. Member Lessons, I know we cut you off. Did you?
Oh.
I know you
Well, I stop searching for the mystery email that I have in my mind where there was a price tag. I guess I'm wondering, right, the board hires the superintendent largely to run the school district. There is a lot more going on, as much as I'm eager to know about the workings of the district, than I can possibly do. So if I were to be a member of a future operations audit committee, how would I be empowered to make the best choices for what to audit? I think is my
Is your
question.
question?
Whereas if the administration knows that benefits need to be audited, right? You are in charge of making sure that happens.
So,
Yeah.
can we log the
that's fine.
question and come back to it? Member Jacobs, I'm sorry, we kind of got sidetracked. You have the floor.
No worries, thank you, and I apologize for not being there in person. So in observing this conversation so far and in interacting with Member Higgins, and as someone who supports transparency and accountability, I'm passionate about this topic too. The first thing I want to say is I think this needs to be highlighted very, very clearly, because my observation is during our board meetings, Member Donnelly has this habit as well. And I think it's just a byproduct of having served on this body for a number of years. As we talk about problems as if they're currently ongoing or this is something that happened last week. And these issues that Member Higgins raised are almost exclusively things that happened years ago under a different superintendent. And so with that said, the work that Member Higgins raises is, I think, important and deserves discussion. Where I see us getting bogged down right now is we're talking about the work of the committee before we decided to form the committee, and that's not what is in front of us. With that said, what I think would be valuable in addition to this policy is a plan. For folks who may remember, we passed for the first time in some years at least, out of the Finance Committee last year, a financial audit plan that discussed the nature of topics to be audited, the scope of the audits, the time frame, and that was passed through finance, went to a full board for the vote, and there was ultimate transparency and accountability there. I personally would like to see that mirrored on the governance side in collaboration with administration, like Member Higgins spoke to, where we have a plan developed. We identify the topics and the scope of the audits. We identify the costs. And I think if we could bring that back to this committee as soon as possible so the work could be started along with the board policy, I think that would allow us to have a fully informed conversation. Because right now it feels like we're spinning our wheels in the mud a bit, talking about hypotheticals and anecdotal costs and experiences. And so that's what I would propose in order to get this done as quickly as possible. I'm not vehemently opposed to an audit committee if that's where this work needs to happen. I will say that we just formed a new committee related to the SCWA, and that committee hasn't even met yet. So I am leery about adding more responsibility onto board members because we all have other obligations. And if the SCWA committee is any indication, we may need to lighten our load in terms of meetings, but still get our jobs done. And so whether or not this work happens inside the governance committee structure or a separate committee structure, I'm less passionate about that than I am about the work itself getting done in a collaborative manner with administration. And so what I would suggest is perhaps Member Higgins, I'd be glad to partner with him. Dr. Bryant can sit down as soon as possible, can identify a potential draft audit plan, identify costs associated with those audits through the Council of Great City Schools, and then bring that back to this committee at our next meeting so we can have kind of a fully scoped out conversation for what we're actually looking at implementing with all those factors in play. So those are my thoughts right now. I'm interested to hear feedback on that as well as any other thoughts.
Okay, so is there anyone who hasn't spoken on this issue that would like to speak on the issue? Dr. Bryant.
From my perspective, and I've spoken with Member Higgins about this, I'm not necessarily opposed to this. It's more a matter of, I think this is more a governance conversation. because the administration is conducting audits. For example, we're doing the benefits audit. But what would be helpful for the administration is to know what the body of the board is interested in auditing, right? And that changes by board member and composition of the board. So, we can get a couple of board members together and create a list based on what those two board members want. But it doesn't help me understand what the body is interested in even auditing. So that's the one challenge that I'm thinking about.
Okay, thank you. Jim?
Having gone through one of these, it was a great experience. They do bring in a lot of council of great city schools, people like me and Andy and Marty and others. What most people probably don't know is how invasive and how time consuming one of these is. It shuts down, it will shut down a department for a period of time completely, pull in people from around the district. And I'm not saying it's wrong, I'm just describing what actually happens. And so I think it's better for the staff to be able to prioritize when an audit would occur, so it's not in the middle of the most critical time. Like for Andy, if it was 2 weeks prior to the annual comprehensive finance review, formerly known as the other word, that would be a bad time, even if this small committee thought, yeah, let's go ahead and do a finance audit. I like the way we do the other audits, where I think I would bring a list sometimes of like a dozen different things, and then the board would talk through, and the committee would narrow it down and get input from the administration. Because there's some things like what we're doing with HR this year that we knew there were problems that were a priority for the superintendent and a brand new churro. And we were able to like focus that. And I think it goes back to what Member Lessons said. I mean, there's things where we're really trying to focus on priorities, and we can easily get sidetracked by so many other people's priorities. And sometimes, as you know, they can be personal in nature, where people want a specific audit for a specific reason, and it's just trying to be able to prioritize our time.
So we appreciate this. It's a very good discussion. It's on the back.
Although I will say it was a great audit, and I enjoyed the experience. But I wasn't the one that was completely consumed.
I haven't had audits where we didn't have support from administration, with the exception of that math program, where it's what they're doing an audit right now with the benefits. We just excluded from the voice in regards to scope or that oversight. That's all we're asking. And we wouldn't do it otherwise, but I think it's critical.
And I don't think I don't disagree that it's a piece that we probably need to give more attention to. I think the governance committee could play a bigger role, much like we play with the finance committee. We are at the point whether we move this forward or whether we work on it more. There is a recommendation from one governance committee member to hold, refine, and come back. And that's kind of where we are. So
Madam President, could
yes.
I speak to that really quick?
Sure.
So just to be clear, what I'm proposing, and I heard Dr. Bryant's point that, 2 board members' thoughts doesn't equal a majority, which is what he needs to act on. And I wholeheartedly agree. But right now we're talking about hypotheticals. So I think the first thing we need to do is to fully flesh out exactly what's being proposed, which right now isn't. And so while it might not be the finished product or anything close to it, I think getting down a first draft audit plan for what it might look like conceptually, potentially along with a list of topics as to how we got there, and kind of showing the work, and bringing that back next month for the committee to consider and then do what it wills, I think is a reasonable step towards getting this moving. I think what we're doing right now is talking about a conceptual committee with work that is with a scope we haven't defined, with a cost we haven't defined, with a process we haven't defined. So we're not making any progress right now. My proposal would be at least a nod in the direction of having a more meaningful conversation. And so that's what I think the benefits are. And so that's why I proposed it.
Alrighty, so, Member Donnelly, did you have any comments before we move on? We appear to have the Member Donnelly.
I can see the merits of having an independent committee because it can be more focused on this function. The Governance committee has a lot to do with the total review of all our current policies and the regulations related to them. And we've been pretty busy.
So you are for moving this forward and
I think
we need to?
it might be helpful to have a group that's focused just on the audit.
Okay, well, that is not that, let the record show that you are for moving this forward.
Yeah.
But the other committee member who is available is not. So we will bring it back next month. All right, I thank you guys for the discussion. We're moving on to item number 3, cultural dates of significance. You should have a handout. Who's speaking on behalf of the administration?
Madam
Mark.
President, that is me. This is somewhat a carryover from my work as a director in secondary. I think everybody's generally familiar with the concept of dates of cultural significance. They're dates that we set aside on the calendar where we limit after-school activities and events so that we don't interfere with people's religious practices and with other holidays where families would normally gather. We want to be able to prioritize those things. I believe prior to 2016, the cultural dates of significance themselves were part of board policy. When we switched over to the AASB policy, there is a statement in board policy 6115 that points to cultural days of significance, but the actual dates themselves were moved to administrative regulation. In secondary, the impact of these is largely to activities, to sports. There's been a sort of a long-standing interest in potentially moving one cultural day of significance because of its unique conflict with high school sports travel. It is not one of the religious dates. It's specifically one of the U.S. holidays. There were 2 U.S. holidays listed. One was Thanksgiving and the other was New Year's Eve. And the request from secondary has been to remove New Year's Eve.
New Year's Day.
New Year's Day, thank you. That's why Holly was here. To remove New Year's Day. And part of the reason is that is a time of year when most school districts are on some sort of winter break. There are lots of tournaments for basketball teams and other winter sports that take place out of the state. It's an opportunity for a lot of our student teams to travel to get some exposure outside the state of Alaska. And it has been uniquely challenging with New Year's Day being a cultural day of significance because we don't allow teams to travel at all during that day or be traveling during that day. And that's when most tournaments take place. So it is currently an administrative regulation, but we wanted to bring it before this committee just to see if there was any input or comments before we entertain removing New Year's Day specifically as a cultural day of significance on the calendar.
If I may add to that.
Yes, please.
Madam President, the notion, it's not just travel. We've had a local tournament that involved some of our teams that actually were intending to play there and then played there because they couldn't travel because of the lovely snowstorms. And so we had to go through an exemption process for them on the fly over break so that they could participate in the local tournament. So it does impact both travel and even some local opportunities.
Questions? Okay, Member Donnelly, and then we'll go to Member Wesson.
I see where New Year's Day is listed in our policy 6115 as a day where it will be closed, the schools will be closed. But I don't see where it's listed in the AR as a day that has, okay, can you show me?
Let's see.
So to Member Donnelly, it is in the current posted version of the AR, the US holidays, it lists both Thanksgiving Day and New Year's Day. I had submitted a sample of this that had track changes in it, and I think somehow the
Okay, so
the
this is,
version that got posted actually.
this is a revised version.
This would be
This
the
would be,
revised
yeah.
version with it.
Are there any other deletions or changes other than just deleting New Year's Day from US holiday?
That was the single change that we're proposing.
So this
Thank you, that's what I wanted to
Okay,
understand.
the tracking isn't on this one, but
If-
it's on
And
mine.
it's probably my fault.
Okay.
Whatever I sent you probably didn't
Okay.
with the track changes, so.
And I can provide it to the board if you send it to me.
It's, well, if it's just deleting New Year's Day from this, I get it.
Member Lessons?
I did want to suggest there need to be a correction. The link on this should be a .org, not a .com, otherwise it's a gobbledygook website. I clicked on it and I found a better hub. But to that point, because I was thinking about Ramadan, which can vary and is a month long, and you're going to have students who are fasting. The website for the Islamic Cultural Center here in Anchorage says that maybe there are about 3,000 Muslims. So there are probably hundreds of students for whom this is, relevant. And maybe not our younger students may not be fasting, perhaps some of our older students might. But I think that might have bearing, maybe less on sports. I mean, it'd be hard to shut down a sport for an entire month, but on district testing windows. And I wondered what the administration's perspective might be on whether we might need to consider, like under special days and events, that we should, under the first bullet point, reference planning calendars before scheduling events or district-wide testing windows to ensure they are not in compliance, to ensure they're not in conflict with dates of cultural significance. So, I mean, if a student is fasting, they may be getting up, they may be eating or drinking a large amount in the middle of the night, right, to get over that long day or very early in the morning. Is that something that we need to, I know there's state testing windows, so it's probably a complicated question, but I would be interested in holding up as many of our students as possible.
I know when the conversation around cultural dates of certain significance first came into existence, there was a lot of outreach to these communities with the district, and the dates that were picked sort of, with the interest of those groups in mind. That particular request, my only concern initially, just based on my initial thoughts, would be that a lot of the testing windows, even for something like MAP, are nationally dates set. And so we don't have the ability to move those around. So where there was overlap, we would be essentially to test students on some of those screening tools. But that's something we can certainly take back.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I have a perfect answer, but I just thought it was worth bringing up for discussion.
Yeah, and
Whether
I
there's
think
any
I would like to have more information on that too.
Okay.
I don't know that, the change right, do we want to hold up for that? Or do we want to just,
I don't think that there's need to
To
hold
hold
this
that-
up because you
bring
can
it back.
always circle back.
Mhm.
So maybe that would be an ongoing question to follow up with.
sure, member, go on, Don.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that the change that's being proposed is in an administrative regulation, that's right?
Correct.
So it's
But-
actually, yeah, the board's not changing a board policy to accomplish this. Because within the policy, it seems you have the discretion to do this.
But we will be
Yeah, so-
changing, we will be striking under special days and events in the policy.
In the
We will be
policy
striking the New Year's Day.
But it's not required that, it just says schools shall be closed.
Okay, all right.
It
I see
doesn't
your point.
require that, I don't read it as prohibiting sporting events.
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry, maybe I wasn't clear. Let me
Okay.
backtrack just a little bit. There are no changes
There
to
are no
recommending
changes
the
to the
board
policy.
policy.
All right, just to the
The
AR.
only change would be the
And we just get
AR.
to know about that. change.
And we wanted to notify you and also see if there was any input. And I think we're particularly sensitive to it on this issue because these were days that at one time didn't exist in board policy. And so,
With that clarification, I just say that I don't have a problem with the administration amending AR 6115A to delete New Year's Day from the mandatory days where we can't have activities.
Okay. All right, any other discussion on this item? Thank you, Marty.
Madam Madam President, I just want to, this is
Did I
Member
miss
Jacobs, I
you?
just want to say that,
Sorry.
nope, it's fine. I just wanted to echo Member Donnelly's comment that because this is an AR, I took this as more of a notification from administration and request for feedback. So I appreciate that, and I think we can move on.
Yep, thank you very much. All right, so let the records reflect. The board is notified of the change to AR 61158. Right, moving on, AASB Be Smart resolution. That will be really quick. As you know, we already have a resolution in our district on Be Smart, which is a safe and secure storage of firearms. This resolution proposal, I'm seeking permission to submit it to the AASB organization to create a statewide, hopefully create a statewide partnership similar to what ASB is doing currently. So basically from our resolution, they don't do the whereas and the therefores with the submission of their proposals. It's simply the title, the proposed resolution, and then the rationale. And I've taken pretty much every word from what we are doing in the ASC. The issue is that the board needs to vote on it before it's submitted. Member Donnelly, I saw your hand.
Thank you, Madam President. I don't remember whether this wording was exactly in the prior action of the board, but I would like to raise a concern now as we proceed. And that is just in the second to the last paragraph on the first page, where it reads, guns continue to be a leading cause of death for our youth. I think guns are inanimate objects, but I do believe gun violence is a leading cause of death to our youth. And I think it would be more appropriate to say gun violence is a leading cause of death. And that would also apply under in the last paragraph, it says in Alaska, it says firearms are the #1 cause of death for children and teens. I think firearm violence is the #1 cause of death for children.
So I don't know if we can pull up our,
Yeah, I can look for it, but I think the
I'm
whole
pretty sure.
rationale behind the Be Smart campaign is securing safe
It's less,
security.
it's less a question of
yeah.
actual violence and more like, oops, I picked up a
So I
gun and
think
played
who
with
has
it.
access to and things.
Yeah, I think their statement of saying guns continue to be a leading cause is more of a statement of
And
unsecured.
I did not make a copy of our resolution, but we do have all the wording came from our resolution, which we adopted in, I want to say October, November. I did not make up any additional. As far as the title and the proposed resolution, that is what the body will see. The resolution committee will be looking at the rationale, if necessary, the actual resolutions committee. So,
I just don't,
go on.
I think it's an important distinction. I don't think guns in and of themselves are bad. I don't think guns cause violence or are the legal cause of death, leading cause of death. I think it's people misusing guns are the leading cause of death. I think that, and
Or maybe access to guns.
What one of the compelling.
President Bellamy?
Yes, member Lessons was speaking and then I'll come to you, Carl.
I don't have the
Thank you.
statistics off the top of my head, but what I recall from something like the Youth Risk Behavior Survey is that a very large number of students in Anchorage
Had
had access to guns. They knew where to get a gun. And at the same time, there were other concerning statistics, like they contemplated suicide. So it's sort of the overlapping of some risk factors.
And that
That
came
was
from the
something,
risk,
the
the
Youth
at-risk
Risk
survey,
Behavior Survey.
and just to continue the conversation.
Hold your thought. Member Jacobs next in the queue, and then we'll come back to you. Member Jacobs.
Yep, just wanted to chime in to say, I think we're all kind of saying the same thing in different ways, is what I'm hearing, that I think when we passed the original language, we all intended it to say, and kind of allude to the underlying sentiment expressed by Member Donnelly, whether or not the word was there. And so I'm fine with the changes he's proposing, because I think that's really what we meant anyway. If there's a better, more of a jargon term to use, that's more accurate instead, from someone who's in the industry or whatnot, I'm fine with that too, but I'm not opposed to the changes being made because I truly think that that's what was meant when we passed the original language, which passed unanimously. Thank you.
And as the maker of the proposed resolution, along with Member Jacobs, I really am not stuck with the language and the rationale. I am more focused on getting the resolution before the body, and to hopefully create a partnership that would create more awareness and around the issue of safe storage of firearms. So, so your recommendation was gun violence
Yeah.
continue to be?
Gun violence is a leading cause of death for our youth. Instead
I'm
of
gonna stop.
guns continue to be, so I replace that with guns violence is a leading cause.
Involving guns.
Yeah, but-
Gun violence is a leading cause. Okay, I will accept that edit.
And then the other one after in Alaska, it would be.
Now, those are facts from Alaska, from the data. I did not alter those. We may disagree with them, but I did not alter those.
Somebody has to misuse the firearm for it to have any effect. It's an inanimate object that sits there. Now, I agree that the security of that object is an issue, but this is imprecise. The gun itself isn't the number one cause of death. It's people having improper access to the gun or misusing the gun, but the gun doesn't do anything. People use the gun.
Thank you. Member Lessons?
Sure, I just wanted to, so I'm looking at the 2019 Youth Risk Behavior Survey, and almost 49% of students in Alaska could access a loaded gun.
So that's one of the things
It's
that
an area that's
cause
highlighted.
firearms to be a leading cause of misuse of firearms to be a leading cause of death. Improper availability. Yeah.
Right, so
I
the access to
agree.
loaded guns is a problem.
Yes, and I agree with that. Access, yeah, but not that the gun itself. The access is an issue. The misuse of the gun is an issue. The violence from the gun is an issue. But not the existence of the gun.
Okay, so all right, so what is your edit there, Member Dominic?
I just would like to see firearms violence is the number one cause of death for children and teens in that last sentence there on the first page.
Violence using firearms, or what did you say?
That's fine too. Violence utilizing firearms.
Member Lessons, did you have a?
No, I didn't do a whole lot of prep work.
All right, so we are at the point where there are two edits in the rationale section. And again, I will repeat, the rationale section is just for the committee who will be reviewing the proposed resolution. It is not published anywhere other than to that committee at the state level during the conference. The two edits are second paragraph under rationale, gun violence, removing continue to be, adding violence is. The second one is firearm violence
Yes.
is the number one. To edit that.
I would so move.
Okay. So is there any further discussion? Seeing, hearing none, we are at a point to move this forward to consent agenda at our next meeting, hopefully. It's the will of the committee. Stanley and Jacobs,
Yes.
If I support, Madam President, yes, ma'am.
thank you. So that will move forward to consent. Thank you very much with those edits. Okay, next, we have revisions to 01411. Board policy. We have 1 minute left. We were I think we were 2 minutes late getting started. What is the will of the committee, the body? Do we want to, well, it's 12 o'clock right now. So we
Well,
will,
Madam President, I would propose, since we haven't accomplished our agenda, the choice is typically our schedule a special meeting or hold over these items till next month. And I don't know that Member Donnelly intends any of the changes to be urgent. And so I think waiting until next month is fine unless he wants to work with Amanda to schedule a special meeting, and I think we can proceed with adjournment.
hold it over. Okay, so let's hold over items 5 and 6 until our next meeting in October.
I have a point of order.
Point of
just
order,
for the
yes.
next meeting. It's my understanding on the last meeting that we were gonna discuss 0510, which was about district report cards. And there was, we kind of discussed that item, and it was my understanding that would have been part of today's agenda.
I think you're correct. I have to go back and
I think
look,
that might
but
need to be part of next. Okay,
yeah.
but just
So,
next meeting is
Thank you
fine.
for that clarification.
Yeah.
We will also add another item which did not make this agenda, which should have rolled over, item 0510 to our October meeting. All right. With that, the business of the committee is concluded for today. I thank everyone for being here. Is there do we do a motion? We don't do a motion to adjourn, do we? I haven't been a committee chair in a while. So our meeting
No.
is concluded at 12:01, and we will resume momentarily with our next meeting, which is our communication.
Finance?
Next finance.
Oh, finance. Oh, and the chair is in the room. Go Kelly. Thank you. We are adjourned at 12:01.